When I think of the rain dance the American Indians used to do, I often wonder if they had to practice first. Wouldn't you want to have rain dance practice just to go over things again? To make sure everyone was doing the correct steps in the correct order? Maybe there were some new guys. Maybe the dance master had some new things he wanted to try out. There are all sorts of reasons why the Indians might want to play it safe and practice first. My question is, if they did hold practice and the rain didn't come, how would they know they had done it right? If the dance is done correctly, shouldn't it rain? Or did the Indians figure the rain god knew it was only practice and he was waiting for the real thing? Then again, if it did rain right after practice, why not just cancel the dance and figure the next time you need rain, all you have to do is practice? These are the kind of thoughts that made it necessary to separate me from the other kids in school. You don't hear much of that elevator music anymore, do you? What's going on? I'll bet there were a lot of singers with great voices who never got famous because they were too ugly to stand up and be seen in public. Why do women wear evening gowns to nightclubs? Why don't they wear nightgowns? I think many years ago an advanced civilization intervened with us genetically and gave us just enough intelligence to develop dangerous technology, but not enough intelligence to use it wisely. Then they sat back to watch the fun, kind of like a human zoo. And you know what? They're getting their money's worth. After you die, your stuff becomes your personal effects. I think people should be allowed to do anything they want. We haven't tried this for a while. Maybe this time it'll work. People ask me if I have an email address, and I say www.fuckyou.com at blowme/up-your-ass. And they seem to understand. Capitalism tries for a delicate balance. It attempts to work things out so that everyone gets just enough stuff to keep them from getting violent and trying to take other people's stuff. Baseball bats are now the preferred weapon for many drug gangs and others who have a business need to administer behavioral reminders. They're cheap, they're lethal, legal, untraceable, and hey, it's the national pastime. Dying must have survival value, or else it wouldn't be part of the biological process. Why is it that when making reference to something in the past, people often think they have to say, I hope I'm not dating myself? Listen, if you're so embarrassed by your age, there's a simple solution. Open a vein. I don't have hobbies. I have interests. Hobbies cost money. Interests are free. With all the presidential administrations we've had, I'm sure that by now, there must have been at least one secretary of something or other who, besides being in the cabinet, was also in the closet. I don't like it when I'm in an audience and the MC tells us to give someone a welcome specific to that city. Let's all get together and give this little lady a nice Toledo welcome. I've often thought if I were from Toledo, it would be fun now and then to give someone a nice Baltimore welcome, just to break the MC's balls. Or maybe slip in an exotic Budapest welcome when no one's expecting it. One thing I would never do is give someone a Dallas welcome. That's what JFK got. Dallas welcomes don't last that long. You rarely see an elderly midget. Apparently, their lifespans are shorter too. You keep hearing that society's greatest tasks are educating people and getting them jobs. That's great. Two things people hate to do: go to school and go to work. You know, we busy ourselves with these meaningless gestures such as Take Our Daughters to Work Day, which applies primarily to white middle-class daughters. More help for the wrong people. Some people seem to think that if there's a problem in the country that makes them unhappy, all they have to do is stage a big march and everything will change. When are they going to learn? I don't know about you, but I really have no problem with atrocities. What's the big deal? Lighten up. Can placebos cause side effects? And if so, are the side effects real? When hundreds of people are killed in an airplane crash, I always wonder if maybe Maybe there wasn't one guy who was a little behind schedule that day, and he had to run down the last few hundred yards of the airport concourse to make the plane on time. And when he finally sat down in his seat, all out of breath, he was really glad he made it. And then an hour later, the plane goes down. What goes through his mind? Do you think maybe in those last few moments as he plunges to the earth, he wishes he'd had a heart attack running through the airport? Why do they bother with a suicide watch when someone is on death row? Keep an eye on this guy. We're going to kill him, and we don't want him to hurt himself first. I notice at Jewish weddings they break a glass. You ever been to an Irish wedding? Glasses, bottles, mirrors, tables, chairs, arms, legs, the band instruments, and the groom's neck. We don't fuck around. Mazel tov. I recently attended an avant-garde play. It was called An Anteater, a Tire Iron, and a Blue Hat by Zal Fenchley. Here's what it said in the program. Act 1, Scene 1. Laura's living room several weeks later. Scene 2. Easter, aboard a Turkish woman's thigh. Scene 3. Deep within the colon of a woolly mammoth, 16,376 B.C. Scene 4. Inside a sailor's shorts during the attack on Pearl Harbor. Act 2, Scene 1. On a French sidewalk, 6 feet from some escargot vomit. Scene 2. Inside a condom in Haifa, Jewish New Year. Scene 3. At your aunt's house. Soon. Act 3, Scene 1. In a Shriner's hat band, following oral sex. Scene 2. Down where Arturo used to live, not that long ago. Act 4, Scene 1. John Lennon sings 2 songs. Not tonight. I love my dog. I love all my dogs. Every dog I ever had, I still love 'em. And in my life, believe me, I have had me a bunch of goddamn dogs. 'Cause you keep on getting a new one, don't you? It's true. As life goes on, you keep getting one new dog after another. That's the whole secret of life. Life is a series of dogs. Sometimes you can get a dog that looks exactly like the one you had before. It's true. If you shop around a little, you can find a dog identical to your former dog. You just bring the dead one into the pet shop, throw him up on the counter and say, "Give me another one of these." And by God, they'll give you a carbon copy of your ex-goddamn dog. And that's real handy, 'cause then you don't have to go around the house changing all the pictures. That's the nice thing about dogs. They don't live too long, and you can go and get a new one. Most people know the best-sized dog to have is a knee-high, mid-sized dog. It's the ideal pet because whenever some nice lady comes to visit you, the first thing that dog does is put his nose right in her crotch. "Hi, Mrs. Effington." "Hi, Stuart, how's the—" "Ooh, what a friendly dog. Ooh, I'll bet he smells my dog." "I'm not sure, Mrs. Effington. Judging by where he's putting his nose, I'd say he's got a completely different animal in mind." "You don't by any chance own a pussy, do you?" "No, no." Some people get embarrassed, by that nose-crotch behavior. The dog owner will often fall all over himself trying to save face. "Stop that, Bongo. Stop it. I'm awfully sorry, Marzell. He's usually so polite. You must have not bathed." Not me, folks. I never apologize. I'm a fun-loving guy. I say, "Get in there, Bongo. Get yourself some of that. Sniff it out. Listen, Marzell, would you mind spreading your legs a little bit so he can get some sniffing room? Plant your feet about 3 feet apart, would you? That's it. Good. Air that thing out. Okay. So how's everything going down at the church? Good. All right, Bongo, now go around the back and sniff that other thing. Sorry, Marzell, there's 2 smells he likes, and one of 'em's in the back." "What's that? You gotta go? Well, I'm awfully sorry. Listen, before you go, you wouldn't be willing to let Bongo have about 30 seconds on your leg, would you?" "Nah, I didn't think so." "Okay, no problem. You take care and tell the Reverend Bongo says hello." Those dogs are really great. They help break the ice when a new neighbor comes to call. "Hi, we're the Belchingtons. Ooh, what's his name?" "Ball Sniffer. He's a crotch hound. Let me know if you want to get circumcised. He's on duty around the clock." We have so many ways of saying hello. Howdy, hi there, how are you, how you doing, how's it going, how do you do, what's new, what's going on, what do you think, what do you hear, what do you say, what do you feel, what's happening, what's shaking, que pasa, what's going down, and what it is. You know my favorite? How's your hammer hanging? That's a good one, isn't it? Doesn't work too well with women, though. Unless you're talking to a lady carpenter, then it's perfectly acceptable. I've always wanted to use that one on a high church official. Good evening, Your Holiness. How hangs thy hammer? So far, I haven't had that opportunity. There's one form of saying hello that bothers me. It's when a guy says to you, "Are they keeping you busy?" It's like he thinks someone has the right to come around and give me odd jobs. Whenever a guy says to me, "Are they keeping you busy?" I always tell him, "Well, your wife is keeping me pretty busy." And that seems to hold him for about a half an hour. Of course, we also have a lot of ways to say goodbye. Bye-bye, so long, see you later, ta-ta, be cool, take it easy, stay loose, hang in, take care, keep on trucking. You know my favorite? Don't get run over. Well, I find some people need practical advice. Occasionally someone will say to me, "Have a good one." I just laugh and say, "I already have a good one. Now I'm looking for a longer one." And that seems to hold them for about a half an hour. Then there are all the foreign ways we say goodbye. Some people, when they leave you, they think they have to get fancy. You know, they'll whip an arrivederci on you, or an au revoir. Some guys say adios, or the American version, "Adios, motherfucker." In Hawaii, they say aloha. That's a nice one. Means both hello and goodbye, which just goes to show, if you spend enough time in the sun, you don't know whether you're coming or going. Did you ever get in a rut with your manner of saying goodbye? And you find yourself using the same phrase over and over, and you begin to feel a little stupid. For instance, like if you're leaving a party, and you have to say goodbye to 5 or 6 people standing in a group, and you say, "Okay, hey, take it easy, okay, 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 hey, take it easy," and you feel like a goddamn moron. You know what I do? Every month, whether I need to or not, I change the way I say goodbye. I start using a different phrase. People like that. They notice that little extra effort. They'll say to me, "Pardon me, but didn't you used to say, 'Okay, hey, take it easy'?" And I say, "Yes, I did, but not anymore. Now I say, 'Farewell. Farewell till we meet again. May the forces of evil become confused on the way to your house.'" That's a strong one, isn't it? Yeah. People will remember you if you talk like that. Sometimes, for a joke, you can combine several ways of saying goodbye that don't seem to go together. Like, "Toodaloo, go with God and don't take any wooden nickels." Then people don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Or you can choose to say goodbye in a realistic manner. "So long, Steve. Don't let self-doubt interfere with your plans to improve your life." Well, some people need practical advice. In the midst of all my bitching, you might have noticed that I never complain about politicians. I leave that to other people. There's no shortage of volunteers. Everyone complains about politicians. Everyone says they suck. But where do people think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from a separate reality. They come from American homes, American families, American schools, American churches, and American businesses, and they're elected by American voters. This is what our system produces, folks. This is the best we can do. Let's face it, we have very little to work with in this country. Garbage in, garbage out. Ignorant citizens elect ignorant leaders. It's as simple as that. And term limits don't help. All you do is get a brand new bunch of ignorant leaders. So maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe it's something else. Like the public. That would be a nice, realistic campaign slogan for somebody, wouldn't it? The public sucks. Elect me. Put the blame where it belongs, on the people. Because if everything is really the fault of politicians, then where are all the bright, honest, intelligent Americans who are ready to step in and replace them? Where are these people hiding? The truth is, we don't have people like that. Everyone's at the mall, scratching his balls and buying sneakers with lights in them, and complaining about the politicians. For myself, I've solved this political dilemma in a very direct way. On Election Day, I stay home. 2 reasons. First of all, voting is meaningless. This country was bought and paid for a long time ago. That empty shit they shuffle around and repackage every 4 years doesn't mean a thing. Second, I don't vote because I firmly believe that if you vote, you have no right to complain. I know some people like to twist that around. They say, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? Think it through. If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent politicians and they screw things up, then you're responsible for what they've done. You voted them in. You caused the problem. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who in fact did not even leave the house on election day, am in no way responsible for what these politicians have done and have every right to complain about the mess you created, which I had nothing to do with. Why can't people see that? Now, I realized recently you folks had another one of those really swell presidential elections that you treasure so much. That was nice. I'm sure you had a good time, and I'm sure that everyone's life has now improved. But I'm happy to tell you that on election day, I stayed home. And I did essentially what you did. The only difference is when I got finished masturbating, I had something to show for it. Why was brown excluded from the rainbow? And where did indigo come from? I was taught there were 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors. What's with this indigo shit? After the hurricane is gone, where do people put all that plywood? Standing ovations have become far too commonplace. What we need are ovations where the audience members all punch and kick one another. Watching television these days, I often wonder what happened to the vertical hold knob. I miss that. Don't you hate it when a rock band comes on stage and apparently the drummer has decided that somehow it's cool to wear a funny hat? There's a store near my house with a sign that says unfinished furniture. I gotta go in there, 'cause I'm looking for a nice 3-legged table. If you live long enough, sooner or later, everyone you know has cancer. I was dancing with a woman the other night. She told me she had a yeast infection. I said, well, bake me a fucking loaf of bread. Couple of corn muffins, jelly donut, I don't give a shit. I'm in the market for quality baked goods. Why don't these people who live in hurricane-prone areas just keep some batteries on hand at home? Seems like a simple thing to me. I'm always relieved when someone is delivering a eulogy and I realize I'm listening to it. Why don't network TV shows have a warning that says, caution, you're about to watch a real piece of shit? Actually, they could just leave it on the screen all the time. All music is the blues. All of it. Electricity is nothing more than organized lightning. When you rub your eyes real hard, do you see sort of a checkerboard pattern? What is that? Coming soon to a theater near you. Actually, there is no theater near you. Look around your street. Is there a theater near you? Attention, certain women. Transporting children is not a license to drive slowly. I saw a sign that said, coming soon, a 24-hour restaurant. And I thought, well, that's unusual. Why would they open and close it so quickly? At least try it for a week or two and see if you can build a clientele. Why is it when the 2 main characters in an action movie have their big climactic fight, it always turns out that both of them are really good fighters? Just once, wouldn't you like to see a fight between 2 leading male characters where one of them gets the shit completely beat out of him in about 8 seconds? Especially the hero. Would someone please explain to me the supposed appeal of having grandchildren? People ask me, are you a grandfather yet? As if it's some great thing. I'm sure it has its charms, and I imagine some dull-witted people want to see their genes passed along just for the sheer novelty of the idea. But overall, I don't get it. Hey, it's been on my mind for some time, but I've never said it publicly, so here goes. Vo-do-de-o-do and a scotty-waddy-doo-dah-day. Thank you. Masturbation is not illegal, but if it were, people would probably take the law into their own hands. It used to be you got a tattoo because you wanted to be one of the few people who had a tattoo. Now you get a tattoo because you don't want to be one of the few people who don't have a tattoo. Just when I discovered the meaning of life, they changed it. People in Washington say it's not the initial offense that gets you in trouble, it's the cover-up. They say you should admit what you did, get the story out, and move on. What this overlooks is the fact that most of the time the cover-up works just fine and nobody finds out a thing. I would imagine that's the rule rather than the exception. My advice? Take a chance. Lie. Here's some fun you can have in a hotel. Smoke a big fat joint and then watch a complex spy movie with a lot of characters and plot twists. Then, a few weeks later, at a different hotel, smoke another joint and watch the same movie. It's like seeing a whole new film. But the real fun is that about every 15 minutes, something happens in the plot that you seem to know already. It's an odd feeling. By the way, this exercise can probably be repeated indefinitely with the same movie, as long as the grass holds out. This is just one more way of starting a sentence with the word this and ending it with the word that. Here's an odd piece of slang I ran across. A woman who fucks a priest is said to have taken a ride on the holy pole. I make fun of people who are religious because I think they're fundamentally weak. But I want you to know that on a personal level, when it comes to believing in God, I tried. I really, really tried. I tried to believe that there's a God who created us in his own image, loves us very much, and keeps a close eye on things. I tried to believe it. But I gotta tell you, the longer you live and the more you look around, the more you realize something is fucked up. Something is wrong. War, disease, death, destruction, hunger, filth, poverty, torture, crime, corruption, and the ice-capades. Something is definitely wrong. If this is the best God can do, I am not impressed. Results like these do not belong on the resume of a supreme being. This is the kind of stuff you'd expect from an office temp with a bad attitude. In any well-managed universe, this guy would have been out on his all-powerful ass a long time ago. So if there is a God, if there is, I think reasonable people might agree he's at least incompetent, and maybe, just maybe, he doesn't give a shit, which I admire in a person, and which would explain a lot of his results. So rather than becoming just another mindless religious robot, blindly believing that everything is in the hands of some spooky, incompetent father figure who doesn't give a shit, I decided to look around for something else to worship, something I could really count on, and immediately I thought of the sun. It happened in an instant. Overnight, I became a sun worshiper. Well, not overnight. You can't see the sun in the dark. But first thing the next morning, I became a sun worshiper. For several reasons. First of all, I can see the sun, okay? Unlike some other gods I could mention, I can actually see the sun. I'm big on that. If I can see something, I don't know, it kind of helps the credibility. Every day I can see the sun as it gives me everything I need. Heat, light, food, flowers in the park, reflections on the lake, an occasional skin cancer, but hey, at least there are no crucifixions. And we sun worshippers don't go around killing other people simply because they don't agree with us. Sun worship is fairly simple. There's no mystery, no miracles, no pageantry, no one asks for money, there are no songs to learn, and we don't have a special building where we all gather once a week to compare clothing. And the best thing about the sun, it never tells me I'm unworthy. It doesn't tell me I'm a bad person who needs to be saved. Hasn't said an unkind word. Treats me fine. So, I worship the sun. But I don't pray to the sun. You know why? Because I wouldn't presume on our friendship. It's not polite. I've often thought people treat God rather rudely. Trillions and trillions of prayers every day, asking and pleading and begging for favors. Do this, give me that, I need this, I want that. And most of this praying takes place on Sunday, his day off. It's not nice, and it's no way to treat a friend. But still, people do pray, and they pray for many different things. And that's okay with me. I say pray for anything you want. Pray for anything. But what about the divine plan? Remember that, the divine plan? A long time ago, God came up with a divine plan. He gave it a lot of thought. He decided it was a good plan, and he put it into practice. And for billions and billions of years, the divine plan has been doing just fine. Now you come along and pray for something. Well, suppose the thing you're praying for isn't in God's divine plan. What do you want him to do? Change his plan? Just for you? Isn't that sort of arrogant? It's a divine plan. What good is being God if every rundown schmuck with a $2 prayer book can come along and fuck with your plan? And here's another problem you might encounter. Suppose your prayers aren't answered. What do you do then? What do you say? Well, it's God's will. Thy will be done. Fine. But if it's God's will, and he's going to do what he wants to anyway, why bother praying in the first place? Doesn't it seem like a big waste of time? Couldn't you just skip the praying part and go straight to his will? It's all very confusing to me. So to get around all this, I decided to worship the sun. But as I said, I don't pray to the sun. You know who I pray to? Joe Pesci. 2 reasons. First of all, I think he's a pretty good actor. To me, that counts. Second, he looks like a guy who can get things done. Joe doesn't fuck around. In fact, he came through on a couple of things that God was having trouble with. For years, I asked God to do something about my noisy neighbor's barking dog. Nothing happened. But Joe Pesci, he straightened that shit out with one visit. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a simple piece of athletic equipment. So I've been praying to Joe for a couple of years now, and I've noticed something. I've noticed that all the prayers I used to offer to God and all the prayers I now offer to Joe Pesci are being answered at about the same 50% rate. Half the time I get what I want, half the time I don't. Same as God, 50-50. Same as the 4-leaf clover, the horseshoe, the wishing well, and the rabbit's foot. Same as the mojo man or the voodoo lady who tells you your fortune by squeezing a goat's testicles. It's all the same, 50-50. So just pick a superstition you like, sit back, make a wish, and enjoy yourself. And for those of you who look to the Bible for its moral lessons and literary qualities, I have a couple of other stories I'd like to recommend. You might want to try The 3 Little Pigs. That's a good one. It has a nice happy ending. And there's always Little Red Riding Hood, although it does have that one X-rated part where the big bad wolf actually eats the grandmother, which I didn't care for. And finally, I've always drawn a great deal of moral comfort from Humpty Dumpty. The part I like best: all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. That's because there is no Humpty Dumpty, folks, and there is no God. None, not one, never was, no God. Sorry. You know, they say that just before you die, your life flashes before your eyes, especially if it's a sudden death. It's like a little personal movie of your own. But it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, mathematically, how would that work? Let's say you're swimming at the beach, and you get caught in a riptide and it pulls you out to sea, and you panic and begin swallowing water. Since you're about to die, the flashback movie begins to roll. Well, it seems to me that if it's really a flashback of your entire life, you'd have to watch the whole thing. And that would include the ending, which means seeing yourself arrive at the beach, walk into the surf, start to drown, and have the movie start all over again. Therefore, you'd have to watch it a second time, which would include arriving at the beach, walking into the surf. You get what I mean? Thanks to the flashback, you can never die. The movie runs forever. I don't like euphemistic language, words that shade the truth. American English is packed with euphemism because Americans have trouble dealing with reality, and in order to shield themselves from it, they use soft language, and somehow it gets worse with every generation. Here's an example. There's a condition in combat that occurs when a soldier is completely stressed out and is on the verge of nervous collapse. In World War I, it was called shell shock. Simple, honest, direct language. 2 syllables. Shell shock. It almost sounds like the guns themselves. That was more than 80 years ago. Then a generation passed, and in World War II the same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now. Takes a little longer to say. Doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigue is a nicer word than shock. Shell shock. Battle fatigue. By the early 1950s, the Korean War had come along, and the very same condition was being called operational exhaustion. The phrase was up to 8 syllables now, and any last traces of humanity had been completely squeezed out of it, like something that might happen to your car. Then, barely 15 years later, we got into Vietnam, and thanks to the deceptions surrounding that war, it's no surprise that the very same condition was referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder. Still 8 syllables, but we've added a hyphen. And the pain is completely buried under jargon. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll bet if they'd have been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have received the attention they needed. But it didn't happen. And one of the reasons is that soft language. The language that takes the life out of life. And somehow, it keeps getting worse. Here are some more examples. At some point in my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Sneakers became running shoes. False teeth became dental appliances. Medicine turned into medication. Information became directory assistance. The dump became the landfill. Motels turned into motor lodges. House trailers into mobile homes. Used cars into previously owned vehicles. Room service became guest room dining. Riots became civil disorders. A strike was a job action. A zoo turned into a wildlife park. The jungle became a rainforest. The swamp became a wetlands. Glasses became prescription eyewear. Garages became parking structures. Drug addiction became substance abuse. Soap operas turned into daytime dramas. A gambling joint became a gaming resort. A prostitute became a sex worker. Theaters became performing arts centers. Wife-beating became domestic violence, and constipation became occasional irregularity. When I was a little boy, if I got sick, I went to a doctor who sent me to a hospital to be treated by other doctors. Now I go to a family practitioner who belongs to a health maintenance organization which sends me to a wellness center to be treated by health care delivery professionals. Poor people used to live in slums. Now, the economically disadvantaged occupy substandard housing in the inner cities. And a lot of them are broke. They don't have negative cash flow. They're broke because many of them were fired. In other words, management wanted to curtail redundancies in the human resources area, and so many workers are no longer viable members of the workforce. Smug, greedy, well-fed white people have invented a language to conceal their sins. It's as simple as that. The CIA doesn't kill anybody, they neutralize people, or they depopulate an area. The government doesn't lie, it engages in disinformation. The Pentagon actually measures nuclear radiation in something called sunshine units. Israeli murderers are called commandos, Arab commandos are called terrorists. The Contra killers were known as freedom fighters. Well, if crime fighters fight crime and firefighters fight fire, what do freedom fighters fight? And some of this softened language is just silly and embarrassing. On the airlines, they say they're going to pre-board passengers in need of special assistance. Cripples. Simple, honest, direct language. There's no shame attached to the word cripple. No shame. It's a word used in Bible translations. Jesus healed the cripples. It doesn't take 6 words to describe that condition. But we don't have cripples anymore. Instead, we have the physically challenged. Is that a grotesque enough evasion for you? How about differently abled? I've actually heard cripples referred to as differently abled. You can't even call them handicapped anymore. They'll say, we're not handicapped, we're handy-capable. These poor suckers have been bullshitted by the system into believing that if you change the name of the condition, somehow you'll change the condition. Well, it doesn't work that way. I'm sure you've noticed we have no deaf people in this country, hearing impaired. And no one's blind, partially sighted, or visually impaired. And thank God we no longer have stupid children. Today's kids all have learning disabilities. Or they're minimally exceptional. How would you like to be told that about your child? Actually, it sounds faintly positive. Your son is minimally exceptional. Oh, thank God for that, I guess. Best of all, psychologists now call ugly people those with severe appearance deficits. Things are so bad that any day I expect to hear a rape victim referred to as an unwilling sperm recipient. Of course, it's been obvious for some time that there are no old people in this country anymore. They all died, and what we have now are senior citizens. How's that for a lifeless, typically American 20th century phrase? There's no pulse in a senior citizen. But that's a term I've come to accept. That's what old people are going to be called. But the phrase I will continue to resist is when they describe an old person as being 90 years young. Imagine how sad the fear of aging that is revealed in that phrase, to be unable even to use the word old, to have to use its antonym. And I understand the fear of aging is natural. It's universal, isn't it? No one wants to get old. No one wants to die. But we do. We die. And we don't like that. So we bullshit ourselves. I started bullshitting myself when I reached my 40s. I'd look in the mirror and say, well, I guess I'm getting older. Older sounds better than old, doesn't it? Sounds like it might even last a little longer. Bullshit. I'm getting old, and it's okay. But the baby boomers can't handle that. And remember, the boomers invented most of this soft language. So now they've come up with a new life phase, pre-elderly. They say they're pre-elderly. How sad. How relentlessly sad. But it's all right, folks, because thanks to our fear of death, no one has to die. They can all just pass away or expire like a magazine subscription. If it happens in the hospital, it'll be called a terminal episode. The insurance company will refer to it as negative patient care outcome. And if it's the result of malpractice, they'll say it was a therapeutic misadventure. To be honest, some of this language makes me want to vomit. Well, perhaps vomit is too strong a word. It makes me want to engage in an involuntary personal protein spill. You know one of the biggest rip-offs in the world? Flowers. They grow free all over the world, and yet we pay for them. And then they die. That seems strange. Flowers are one of the few things we buy, bring home, watch die, and we don't ask for our money back. Normally we'd be screaming at a merchant over something like that. Hey, what kind of shit is this? Give me my money back. The fucking thing's keeled over right on the piano. The caterpillar does all the work, but the butterfly gets all the publicity. Tits always look better in a pink sweater. You know what you don't see enough of on television? A good parachute accident. It's kind of fun. Ask your dry cleaner if he can remove the stains from one pair of pants and put them in another. He should be able to do that for the same amount of money. While you're in there, ask him if he can remove semen from a wedding veil. That's the test of a really good dry cleaner. To me, fast food is when a cheetah eats an antelope. That's fast. Two men whose names you see a lot on air conditioner dials. Norm and Max. Who are they? Have you ever been kissing someone and one of you has a snot that's whistling? It takes your mind off the sex, because it requires a 3-step solution. First of all, you have to figure out whose nose it's in. Then you have to determine which nostril. Finally, someone has to dig in there and, if not completely remove it, at least push it to one side so it doesn't whistle anymore. By the way, during all this activity, the man usually loses his heart-on. A crumb is a great thing. If you break a crumb in half, you don't get 2 half crumbs, you get 2 crumbs. Doesn't that violate some law of physics? I think I am, therefore I am. I think. Have you ever noticed that when you're torturing a guy, after a while you get real tired and you don't know what to do to him next? Then you think of something and you sort of get your energy back. Any man with a small mustache wearing a bow tie and a loud vest is an asshole. A cat will blink when struck with a hammer. I think reception lines would be a lot more interesting if instead of shaking hands, people greeted each other with a kick in the groin. The reason the mainstream is thought of as a stream is because it's so shallow. Here's a bumper sticker I actually saw. Horn broke, watch for finger. Here's some fun you can have at the ballpark. Do you ever notice a lot of guys bring a glove to the ball game to catch a foul ball? Never mind that, bring a bat. When a foul ball comes flying toward you, hit it back to the players. Everyone will sense you're a fun fan. They'll be glad they came to the ballpark on straitjacket night. I read somewhere that for the average person, 14 farts a day are considered normal. Based on these figures, and judging from my own output, I have to assume there are millions of people who never fart at all. I don't have a fear of heights. I do, however, have a fear of falling from heights. Isn't it a good feeling when you read the tabloids and you realize that a lot of famous people are just as fucked up as you are? The justice system should have a penalty whereby they take you to prison and for 10 years the guards take turns doing that Three Stooges jabbing two fingers in the eyes thing. I think that would straighten a lot of guys out. I noticed in the newspaper that track and field has an event called the Women's Pole Vault. It makes me wonder, with all the options available to her in this age, how does a young woman get interested in pole vaulting? Seems like a bizarre choice. By the way, I hope you noticed I completely ignored the obvious opportunity for a cheap phallic joke. If I ever lose my mind, I hope some honest person will find it and take it to Lost and Found. In some hotels, they give you a little sewing kit. You know what I do? I sew the towels together. One time I sewed a button on a lampshade. I like to leave a mark. This goes under the category, what's wrong with America? There are schools in Fairfax County, Virginia, where kids are not allowed to win soccer games. Whenever a team gets 2 goals ahead, they have to give up 1 player. Pathetic. The Asian country known as Mongolia used to be called Outer Mongolia, and just below the Outer Mongolian border with China, there was an autonomous region called Inner Mongolia. And since each of them had its own inner and outer regions, that means that at one time there existed, fairly close to one another, an outer Inner Mongolia and an inner Outer Mongolia. I like that sort of thing. I like picturing the road signs and all the people taking wrong turns. When someone with an artificial heart dies, I think they should take out the heart, hook it up to an artificial body, and just let it go at that. I have a proposition. I think if white people are going to burn down black churches, then black people ought to burn down the House of Blues. What a disgrace that place is, the House of Blues. You know what they ought to call it? The House of Lame White Motherfuckers. Inauthentic, low-frequency, lame white motherfuckers. Especially these male movie stars who think they're blues artists. You ever see these guys? Don't you just want to puke in your soup when one of these fat, overweight, out-of-shape, middle-aged, pasty-faced, baldy-headed movie stars with sunglasses jumps on stage and starts blowing into a harmonica? It's a fucking sacrilege. In the first place, white people got no business playing the blues ever, at all. Under any circumstances. What the fuck do white people have to be blue about? Banana Republic ran out of khakis? The espresso machine is jammed? Hootie and the Blowfish are breaking up? Shit, white people ought to understand their job is to give people the blues, not to get them, and certainly not to sing or play them. I'll tell you a little secret about the blues. It's not enough to know which notes to play. You gotta know why they need to be played. And another thing, I don't think white people should be trying to dance like blacks. Stop that! Stick to your faggoty polkas and waltzes and that repulsive country line dancing shit that you do. And be yourself, be proud, be lame, be white, and get the fuck off the dance floor. Here's something I wonder. When Britain returned Hong Kong to China, there was a long, formal ceremony. I saw it on television, and the whole thing looked very well rehearsed. And I wondered how everyone knew exactly where to stand and what to do. I mean, after all, the event had never taken place before. How could there be a set of procedures? Do the British have a manual on returning colonies? Well, if they do, they won't be needing it much longer. And I noticed the same thing is true when a pope or a king dies. The elaborate funerals always involve at least 30 or 40 groups of participants, each with different roles and different garb, and each of whom seems to know exactly where to walk, when to stop, and where to stand. And everyone knows all the songs and prayers by heart. Can someone tell me when these people practice all this pageantry? I'm not too enthusiastic about this organ donor idea. What bothers me most is that it's run by the Motor Vehicle Bureau, okay? I figure if I have to wait in line that long for a kidney, fuck it, I'll do without. They send you a little card you're supposed to carry in your wallet next to your driver's license. You're supposed to list the organs you're willing to donate in case you die. Are these people crazy? Do you honestly believe that if a paramedic finds that card on you after an accident, he's going to be trying to save your life? No way! He's looking for fucking parts. Look, Sid, here's that lower intestine we've been hoping for. Never mind the CPR, this man's a donor. Fuck that. If these people want something of mine, they can have my appendix. That's it. That's all I'm giving. Put it in the cooler and get the fuck out of here. And don't go pulling any plugs on me either. That's another bunch of macho bullshit floating around. People talking about, just pull the plug on me. If I'm comatose, lying there like a vegetable, just go ahead and pull the plug. And I say, fuck you. Leave my plug alone. Get an extension cord for my plug. I want everything you got. Tubes, cords, plugs, probes, electrodes, IVs. You find I got an orifice that's not being used, stick a fucking tube in it. Vegetable shit. I don't care if I look like an artichoke. Save my ass. If you ever find out I'm comatose, just remember there are 3 things I gotta have. Ice cream, morphine, and TV. Give me that ice cream about every 2 hours. Give me that morphine about, every 10 minutes. And turn on the fucking TV. I want to watch Survivor. And don't be coming to visit me either. I got no time for live people. I'm brain dead here. Ain't you got no respect for the brain dead? Hey, you got to be brain dead to watch Survivor in the first place. Might as well watch it when you're clinically brain dead. One more thought concerning this comatose stuff, and this might come in handy for you someday. If you know a homosexual who is comatose, remember, you can always comfort his family by saying, look at it this way, folks. He was a fruit, now he's a vegetable. At least he's still in the produce section. Long time ago, I had a little dog named Tippy. And one time when I was doing drugs, I fed Tippy a whole bunch of Cracker Jack, 'cause that's what I was having. Cracker Jack and tap water. Seemed like a reasonable meal to me. And even though Tippy was a little dog, she ate about 2 boxes of Cracker Jack. And the next day, when I took her out for a walk, she squatted and strained and grunted and shook, and you know what? By God, instead of taking a shit, she took a Cracker Jack. Right in front of my eyes, I saw a fully formed, undigested Cracker Jack coming out of my dog. Well, you know me, I'm a practical guy. I kept waiting for the little surprise to come out, hoping it wouldn't be a whistle or a bird call. I figure there's a certain amount of basic hygiene you just don't want to ignore. A lot of people in this country want to tell you what you can and can't talk about. Or sometimes they'll tell you can talk about something, but you can't joke about it, like rape. People say you can't joke about rape. They say rape's not funny. And I say, fuck you, I think it's hilarious. How do you like that? I can prove rape is funny. Picture Porky Pig raping Daisy Duck. See? Hey, why do you think they call him Porky? And I know what men are going to say. Daisy was asking for it. She was coming on to Porky. She had on tight feathers. Porky got horny and he lost control. A lot of men talk like that. They blame it on the woman, you know. They say, she had it coming. She was wearing a short skirt. Doesn't seem fair to me. Doesn't seem right. But I believe you can joke about it. I believe you can joke about anything. Just depends on how you construct the joke, what the exaggeration is. Every joke needs one exaggeration. Every joke needs one thing to be way out of proportion. I'll give you an example. you ever seen a news story like this? Some burglar breaks into a house, steals some things, and while he's in there, he rapes an 81-year-old woman. And you think to yourself, why? What the fuck kind of social life does this guy have? I want to ask him, why did you do that? But I know what I'd hear. Hey, she was coming on to me. She had on a tight bathrobe. And I'm thinking, next time be a little more selective, will you? Now, speaking of rape, but changing the subject slightly, you know what I wonder? I wonder, is there more rape at the equator or the North Pole? I mean, per capita. I know the populations are different. I think it's the North Pole. Most people think it's the equator. Because it's hot down there, people don't wear a lot of clothing, guys can see women's tits and they get horny, and there's a lot of rape and a lot of fucking in general. But that's exactly why there's less rape at the equator. Because there's a lot of fucking in general. You can tell the equator has a lot of fucking. Look at the population figures. Billions of people live near the equator. How many Eskimos we got? 30? 35? No one's getting laid at the North Pole. It's too cold. An Eskimo says to his wife, "Hey, honey, how about some pussy?"
She says, "Wally, are you crazy? The wind chill is 150 below.
Eskimo guys are deprived, they're horny, they get pent up, and every now and then they gotta rape somebody. Now, the biggest problem an Eskimo rapist has is trying to get wet leather leggings off a woman who doesn't want to take them off. Have you ever tried to pull leather pants off someone who's trying to kick you in the nuts? Takes a lot of effort, and in the process, you'd lose your heart-on. In fact, at the North Pole, your dick would shrivel up like a stack of dimes. That's another thing I wonder. Does a rapist have a hard-on when he leaves the house in the morning? Or does it develop during the day while he's walking around checking out the gals? Just wondering. I've figured out how to commit the perfect double murder. You pick one person up by the ankles and beat the other person to death with him. They both die, and there's no murder weapon. Peg-Leg Bates's wife is one person who never had to wait for the other shoe to drop. Did you ever have a hatchet go right through your face? Not a glancing blow, but a full-on shot deep into your forehead, huh? Deep enough so you can shake your head and the hatchet doesn't fall out. It's the strangest feeling. Because just after the hatchet goes in, and before there's any pain, you can feel a gentle puff of cool air on your brain. It feels good. But since it's the only way to get that feeling, I try not to get too hung up on it. When did they pass a law that says the people who make my sandwich have to be wearing gloves? I'm not comfortable with this at all. I don't want glove residue all over my food. It's not sanitary. Who knows where these gloves have been? Let's get back to human hands making sandwiches for human beings. As you swim the river of life, do the breaststroke. It helps to clear the turds from your path. Have you ever tried to throw away an old wastebasket? You can't do it. People keep bringing it back. "Here, Howie, I found your wastebasket in the garbage." Apparently, you have to completely destroy a wastebasket in order to convince people you really don't want it anymore. In Los Angeles, there's a hotline for people in denial. So far, no one has called. Just once, I'd like to see a high-speed funeral procession. A hearse, some flower cars, and a bunch of limousines tearing ass through town at 70 miles an hour on their way to the cemetery. Maybe someday a race car driver will put that in his will. You know a business that doesn't lend itself too easily to the internet? Pay toilets. Here's something I consider a crime against society. Women with hyphenated names. Hey, lady, pick a fucking name, will you? Hi, I'm Emily Jericho Fortescue. Hi, I'm George Jerk Me Off Fuck You Too. Attention women. You don't attain self-esteem or personal dignity by adding a name to your name. Modern feminists apparently think that hyphenation is some kind of radical act. It's not. Castrating a man in a parking lot with a Coke bottle is a radical act. Hyphenating your name is pretentious middle-class bullshit. No one ever knows what's next, but they always do it. You know what they don't have? A really good French football player. You never hear about some guy named Pierre Ledoux smashing through the line of scrimmage and picking up a first down. Why is that? Here's some fun you can have. Go into a gun store, buy a gun, then buy some ammunition, then ask them if they have any ski masks. I have a very inexpensive security system. If someone breaks into my house, I run next door and throw a brick through my neighbor's window. That sets off his alarm, and when the police arrive, I direct them to my house. As immigrants from Asia become more completely assimilated into American society over the next few generations, their standards of hard work and academic excellence will drop, and they'll feel more at home here. Some teenage girls delay getting abortions because they're afraid to comply with the parental notification laws, especially if one of the parents also happens to be the father of the child. Here's a plastic surgery option. Have one nostril sewn shut. I feel like I might be ready for that. Regarding the Pledge of Allegiance and other patriotic nonsense, what does placing your hand over your heart have to do with anything? Or removing your hat when the flag is passing by? Am I missing something? True fact. There is actually a tow truck Hall of Fame. I just realized I haven't been scared in a really long time. Didn't the first guy who wore a sombrero realize it was completely impractical for eating pussy? I don't understand motivation books. What happened here? Suddenly everybody needs to be motivated? It's a fairly simple thing. Either you want to do something or you don't. There's no mystery. Besides, if you're motivated enough to go to the store to buy a motivation book, aren't you motivated enough to do that? So you don't need the book. Put it back. Tell the clerk, fuck you, I'm going home. I'm already motivated. You know a word you don't hear enough anymore? Hosiery. The latest disaster for the rest of the universe is that the United States is going to go to Mars, okay? Oh, yeah. We're going to go to Mars. And then, of course, we're going to colonize deep space with our microwave hot dogs and fake vomit, plastic dog shit, cinnamon dental floss, lemon-scented toilet paper, edible women's panties, and sneakers with lights in the heels. And all these other impressive things we've done down here. But let me ask you this. What are we going to tell the Intergalactic Space Council the first time one of our teenage mothers throws her newborn baby into a dumpster, huh? How are we going to explain that to the space people? How are we going to tell them that our ambassador was late for the meeting because his breakfast was cold and he had to spend half an hour punching his wife around the kitchen? And what are they going to think when we tell them it's just a local custom that over 80 million women in the third world have had their clitorises forcibly removed to reduce their sexual pleasure so they won't cheat on their husbands? Can't you see 'em out there with their red carpet and brass band just a-waiting for those intelligent, enlightened human beings to drop by? No wonder we can't get any radio signals from these people. They're not sending any. They're too afraid we'll answer them. This is a list of people I can do without. Guys in their 50s named Skip. Anyone who pays for vaginal jelly with a platinum credit card. An airline pilot wearing 2 different shoes. A proctologist with poor depth perception. A pimp who drives a Ford Escort. A gynecologist who wants my wife to have 3 quaaludes before the examination. Guys with a lot of small pins on their hats. Anyone who mentions Jesus more than 300 times in a 2-minute conversation. A dentist with blood in his hair. Any woman whose hobby is breastfeeding zoo animals. A funeral director who says, "Hope to see you folks again real soon." A man with only one lip. A Boy Scout master who works at a dildo shop. People who know the 3rd verse to the Star-Spangled Banner. Any lawyer who refers to the police as the federales. A cross-eyed nun with a bullwhip and a bottle of gin. Guys who have their names printed on their belts. A brain surgeon with "Born to Lose" tattooed on his hand. Couples whose children's names all start with the same initial. A man in a hospital gown directing traffic. A waitress with a visible infection on her serving hand. People who have large gums and small teeth. Guys who wear the same underwear until it begins to cut off the circulation to their crotch. And any woman whose arm hair completely covers her wristwatch. When I was young, most kids in my neighborhood drank beer before they discovered pot. Everybody drank first. Saturday night we drank beer and puked on our shoes. It was an Irish neighborhood. Drink and puke, that was it. A great American tradition. It still goes on today. But then in 1950, when I was 13, we heard about pot. We discovered that on pot you didn't stagger, you didn't puke on your shoes, and your breath didn't smell, which was important, because as a kid, when you came home from drinking, there were two breath smells that could give you away, alcohol and puke. So we found that when you smoked pot, you could withstand your mother's closest scrutiny. Because let's face it, you'd come home drunk so often wearing someone else's clothing that your mother was now openly asking to smell your breath. Come here, mister. Let me smell the breath. Ah, no booze or puke. That's a good boy. What's that under your arm? 2 boxes of Oreos. That's a good boy. Good night, Ma. Cool. What is all this nonsense about angels? Do you realize 3 out of 4 Americans now believe in angels? What are they, fucking stupid? Has everybody lost their goddamn minds? Angels, my ass. You know what I think it is? I think it's a massive collective chemical flashback from all the drugs, smoked, swallowed, snorted, and shot up by all Americans from 1960 to 2000. 40 years of adulterated street drugs will get you some fucking angels, my friend. Angel shit. What about goblins? Did anybody believe in goblins? And zombies? Where the fuck are all the zombies? That's the trouble with zombies. They're unreliable. I say if you're going to buy that angel bullshit, you may as well go for the goblin zombie package as well. Here's another horrifying example of a declining American culture. The continued pussification of the male population, this time in the form of Harley-Davidson theme restaurants. What the fuck is going on? Harley-Davidson used to mean something. It stood for biker attitude, grimy outlaws and their sweaty mamas full of beer and crank, rolling around on Harleys, looking for a good time, destroying property, raping teenagers, and killing policemen. All very necessary activities. But now, theme restaurants. And this soft shit obviously didn't come from hardcore bikers. It came from these weekend motorcyclists. These fraudulent 2-day-a-week lame assholes who have their bikes trucked into Sturgis, South Dakota for the big rally and then ride around town like they just come in off the road. Lawyers and dentists and pussy boy software designers getting up on Harleys because they think it makes them cool. Well, hey, Skeezix, you ain't cool. You're fucking chilly. And chilly ain't never been cool. Here's a list of things to do from a day in the life of Henry VIII. Wake up, fuck the queen, take a shit, kill the queen, eat 6 chickens, get married, kill the new queen, eat a cow, take a shit, start dating, belch for an hour, eat a sheep, kill my date, defy the pope, eat a goat, take a shit, fuck a bishop, get engaged, kill my fiancé, eat a pig, marry a pig, kill the pig, eat the pope, vomit, go to sleep. I always refer to any individual member of the Red Sox as a Red Sock. Is this correct? America, where the Irish, English, Germans, Scandinavians, Poles, and Italians all came together to kill Indians, lynch niggers, and beat the shit out of Spics and Jews. Next guy who says to me bada boom bada bing is getting kicked right in the fucking nuts. I was one of the people at Woodstock who took the brown acid. Let me tell you, there was nothing wrong with it. Never forget, Hitler was a Catholic. Here would be a good epitaph for some guy. I want everyone to know it was great being alive and I really enjoyed myself. I especially enjoyed fucking and going to the movies. If you listen to his voice carefully without looking at the screen, Ted Koppel sounds like he's taking a shit. There's a thing called shaken baby syndrome that people get upset about. Personally, I think you have to give them a good shake, or they don't bake uniformly. The Golden Gate Bridge should have a long bungee cord for people who aren't quite ready to commit suicide but want to get in a little practice. If a movie is described as a romantic comedy, you can usually find me next door playing pinball. Somehow, I enjoy watching people suffer. My most frequent sex fantasy: to work in a delicatessen and have a woman come in and ask me to give her a pound of tongue. And I'd say, well, I don't get off till 4 o'clock. And she'd say, well, I don't get off at all. That's why I want some tongue. If they decide to cover Viagra under Medicare, we'll all be paying for other people's hard-ons. You know what they ought to have? Motherfuckers Day. The day after Mother's Day ought to be Motherfuckers Day. Actually, when you think about it, Father's Day is Motherfuckers Day. Attention men, the dumb-looking shaved head thing has finally played out. Try to find some other way of pretending to be cool and different. In applying the stereotype that all old people are slow-thinking and dull-witted, what's often overlooked is that many of these people were slow-thinking and dull-witted throughout their lives. At this point, they're simply older versions of the same unimpressive people. My main operating principle: don't take any shit from the zeitgeist. History is not happenstance. It is conspiratorial, carefully planned, and executed by people in power. The mayfly lives only one day, and sometimes it rains. You know what you never hear about anymore? Quicksand. When I was a kid, movies and comic books had quicksand all the time. What happened? Same thing with whirlpools. You never hear about some guy being sucked down into a whirlpool anymore. I miss that. I think they ought to have black confetti. It'd be great for funerals, especially if the dead person wasn't too popular. If you really want to put a faith healer to the test, tell him you want a smaller shoe size. Did you ever notice you never seem to get laid on Thanksgiving? I think it's 'cause all the coats are on the bed. In the United States, anyone can be president. That's the problem. You know how you can tell when a moth farts? When he suddenly flies in a straight line. Do you realize that somewhere in the world there exists a person who qualifies as the worst doctor? If you took the time, by process of elimination, you could actually determine the worst doctor in the world. And the funny part is, someone has an appointment to see him tomorrow. I often think of something my grandfather used to say. You know, he'd look at me and he'd say, I'm going upstairs and fuck your grandma. Well, he was a really honest man. He wasn't going to bullshit a 4-year-old. Just beyond the edge of the solar system, in the Oort cloud, there's a swarm of about 1 trillion comets orbiting the sun. Let's hope that right now one of them is turning slightly and pointing itself directly at Mississippi. The police in Los Angeles said recently that someone had been stabbed in the San Pedro area. Believe me, I know how painful that can be. I was once bitten there by a dog. It's especially painful when you go to the bathroom. Doesn't Jonesboro sound to you like a place where everyone has a drug habit? Here's something that pisses me off. Retired people who don't want to pay local property taxes because they say it's not their grandchildren who go to the schools. Mean-spirited retirees, usually from out of state, cheap, selfish, old bush voters. The ones I read about were in Arizona, AARP members. They take a shit the size of a peanut and think it's an accomplishment. And it's not like these retirement people can't afford the tax money. Not all old people are as dependent on Social Security checks as they'd like you to think. Some of them get all kinds of checks. Social Security, the VA, private pensions, government pensions. They also have stock dividends, bank interest, and whatever else they've managed to squeeze out of the system. And still, they begrudge their local property taxes simply because their own fucked-up, cross-eyed grandchildren aren't going to use the schools. Fuck 'em. I say pay your taxes and die like everyone else. I hope they choke on an early bird dinner. I never did well at Monopoly. I guess I don't have a business mind. Oh, I'd usually manage to own a couple of railroads, and waterworks, of course. I'm not a complete asshole. I know a monopoly when I see one. Everybody needs water. But it always frustrated me that the other guys wouldn't let me build houses on waterworks. They said it was zoning or some shit like that. I think they were just jealous that I had vision. The worst fight I ever got into was when I tried to put hotels on the electric company. Vision. As far as other properties were concerned, naturally, I'd snap up Baltic Avenue as soon as that became available. How much is that son of a bitch? $60? Give me that mother. I gotta have a place to live. About the best thing I'd ever own would be 1 or 2 properties in the light blue series. Maybe Oriental Avenue. No houses, of course. Just an excavation or 2. That's about all I ever had on my property. Plans. Surveyor's marks. I just couldn't get financing. All my friends would have shopping centers, malls, condominiums, industrial parks, and they liked to rub it in. Oh boy, Carlin, you're coming down my side of the board now. Get ready to pay up. Oh no, please God, give me a big one. Then I'd roll the dice. Hot shit, a 12. Thank you, God. Jump, 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 jump. Fuck you, Tony. I ain't even stopping on your side. Fuck you and Boardwalk too. That's all right, Carlin. You'll be around again. But of course you can't move your token until you remember which one is yours. Which one is mine? Am I the hat? I could swear I was the hat. No, that was yesterday. Wait, I know. The racing car. I'm the racing car. Hey, who's the ship? Richie, are you the ship? No, he's not the ship. I'm the ship. I get the ship every game. Don't even touch the fucking ship. Tony was the biggest guy. None of them wanted to be the iron. Too feminine. The worst token to have was the cannon, the big gun. It was the only top-heavy token. It kept falling over. Throw the dice anywhere near it and it fell on its side. And then some anal retentive would say, "Who has the gun? Are you the gun? Would you pick it up, please? And you, Paulie, are you in jail or just visiting? Well, if you're just visiting, put the car on the side of the jail, not on the actual jail part." Some guys really cared. That's why they won. I never won. But I was always in there at the end, because I had all the $1 bills, $2,500 in singles, and they needed me to make change. I'd always try to borrow money. "Please, Tony, just $5. I want to buy some gum." "Fuck you, Carlin. I'll give you $5 for waterworks." 10. $7.50. "Tony, they don't have a 50-cent bill." "Tough shit. Tear $1 in half." Nah, I wasn't very good at the game. But I spent a lot of time landing on chance, and I always tried to buy it. I got in more fights trying to buy chance. I'd move my token. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Chance. Turn over the card. A little man with a hat. $200 for being an asshole. "Hey, Richie, shuffle those cards, will you? That's the second time I got that one." Well, there you have it, folks. Situation rectified. Plenty of nice things to play for your friends. That is, if you're considering living alone for the rest of your life. I'll see you soon. Oh, and don't forget...
This has been a production of Highbridge Audio.